Okay, and we are live.
Okay. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Welcome. How is everybody doing? Well, tell us in the chat if you're there first. Maybe we will need to wait a minute for people to start coming in. Okay. Hello, everybody. How are you doing? Yeah. So, welcome to this Valentine's Day card making demo with the excellent artist and anime coach Iman. I don't want to butcher your last name, Iman
Zadrozny.
Zadrozny. Okay. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Hi everyone. I'm a new anime coach. I am also an artist at Hallmark. I do illustration and I do sculpting for them. So you'll see my work in a lot of greeting cards, a lot of gift packaging, a lot of gifts itself. I like do some designing for like plush and merch and things like that. And then I also do some sculpting for their keepsakes, like Christmas ornaments and stuff like that. So, yeah, today we're looking at doing a Valentine's Day card. So I'm really excited.
Yeah, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the chat, and I'm going to be passing that on to Iman.
Cool. All right, I'm gonna get started. So today, last time we did a Christmas card, and that was super fun. So if there's any people returning from last time, we're gonna be expanding on that a little bit, but not something so much that if you didn't tune in last time that you would be totally lost. So yeah, we're just gonna go a little bit deeper into it. So the last time I think we tried to stick more like very simple. I think we're gonna start adding some texture today. I think that's gonna be some of the main goals. Um, but yeah, starting off, again, I like I mentioned the last time, I'm like somewhat on a crusade to uh get people to realize that like using reference is okay. So again, I'm gonna be transparent about my reference this time. So this is my little inspiration mood board of kind of the images that either inspired me or that like I enjoy their color palette that I might reference that later on. So um yeah, this is the idea we're going with today. I really like these cats in these like funky hats, so I think we're gonna do something with that. But if you're following along at home and you have your own pet that you want to put in, or a different animal that you want to put in, I think that sounds good too. So I'm gonna I'm gonna start off. I have this like tileable like paper texture that I'm gonna like kind of get paper in the background here. This one or this demo, I think I will. If you are following traditionally, stop me if you have questions about how you can do it, more traditionally. But if not, I think this demo is probably going to be like mostly for all the other digital people out there. So yeah, yeah. Okay, so we've got our paper texture here a little bit. I'm gonna just get like I just don't like my canvas like too white at the start. It's like too intimidating. So I definitely want to like fill it a little bit with something. And then I guess we'll go in with like a little bit of sketching. But sometimes I go in with line work and sometimes I just go in with colors. Um, so let's just sketch out an idea here. I get a little hairy because I'm like finding it. Uh, maybe something in our composition like that. And yeah, we're doing or I was inspired by those cats and those hats. If, again, if you want to follow along and do something else, I think a lot of things can work here.
Well, I have a question about that. How do you go about looking for inspiration in the internet? Do you have a particular idea first, or you get inspired by what you find?
Sometimes a bit of both. Sometimes like I start with an idea that I already have in mind that I know that I'd like to do. Um, and then other times I have no ideas and I need to go gather inspiration. And then the more that I gather and the more that I look at, the more things like will start to come to me. Um, but I don't know. The thing that about making a product for somebody, is that when you're making like fine art, you kind of look to like what's classic, and you can still look to what's classic when you're doing like art for product. But I think something that's like a little different about art that you're making for to be sold is that you're looking for a lot of like what's trending and like what people would want to buy. So it's a bit more like consumer focused. But I think that there's still like a way to bring like yourself into it. Like I don't think that it has to be like, oh, the only thing that you make is like um what the consumer wants. Like I think it's totally you can bring a lot of yourself to the table as well. Uh but I do think that like, when you're making a product that you intend to like sell to somebody, you want to look at like what people are interested in buying. Um, but in the same way, if you're making a Valentine's Day card and you're following this demo and you just want to make something for someone personal, then maybe you would look at that person. I think it all just depends on like what your intended audience is. Like if it's someone that you know, or if it's like, oh, you want to get into like selling greeting cards, then I think you might have a different mentality about it. And about like what kind of inspiration you're looking for. Yeah. Yeah. So this time I know, nope, that's not what I want. I know last time people were questioning my use of like the lasso for if you were doing things uh traditionally, but I think since I'm recommending that this lesson is for digital people, I hope y'all are okay if I use my lasso tool. Yeah, so I've got maybe that in the front. And then maybe there's like I hope we have time, but I want to do some text here. Um so I'm going to plan that there's some text there and some text here. Maybe we have sort of yeah, that's cute. Sort of a lockup design. So the last time we also did something that was more vertical, but today we're doing like a square composition, to show that sometimes you're not limited by like a standard card size. I think as we do future lessons, it'll be fun to do some that are like maybe die cut or something, you know, like or that or like a pop-up format, you know. So um I think those can be really fun too. But this time we're doing square, or at least I'm doing square. I'm planning for this little strawberry hat is cute.
We have a question from Walter.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any tips for doing hand lettering on the card? I find I often struggle laying out my text evenly.
Yeah, I'll kind of plot in some text while we're here. Yeah, so I like kind of blocked in this box, but I think to go further, um, I might mouse in what the letters are, and then again, because I'm doing this digitally, I can like erase it and do it a bunch of times. And I definitely think if you're doing hand lettering, you should give yourself the flexibility to erase it and do it a bunch of times before you like commit to a design. Like I don't think there's any like hand lettering art that's out there that's just like done in one go, you know? Like I think you need to give yourself that flexibility to like draw it out. That looks weird, fix it, you know, and like go back and forth. So, I think the text I wanted to do this time, I'm going to block in some letters here. Um I make the T, like letters like T can take up a lot more room than you kind of want them to. So I make them a little shorter, like on this, like the crossbar at the top. Um and then the more you do like hand lettering, the more that you will have things like about your hand lettering that actually, you know what? Let me do it straight on at first. Uh okay. Let's do it this way. Let's do it straight on at first, and then we can like bend it later. So this time, let's do a little thin actually. Like we can worry about the curve after. If we're doing this digitally. If you're doing it traditionally, you might draw it out on the curve. But I think here I'm going to map out my grid.
We have a question from Marquise. What do you recommend for traditional? I was thinking of buying watercolor postcards.
Yeah, I have some of those. I think they're really fun. I would definitely try some of those out. I think those are a really fun a really fun way to like make a cool piece of artwork really fast. Um I think watercolor postcards are great. If you're thinking for like a to make a card, yeah, I think gouache and watercolor can be really fun. Um or if you're doing it digitally, of course, you know. I would just get them like printed someplace really nice. Um, but yeah, I think gouache and watercolor are like, oh, and paper cut. Paper cut is so much fun and it's so like underrepresented. So if you want to make something that feels very like personal and handcrafted, and if you like do it right? Or like you end up with something really cool. It like is a really cool portfolio piece too. Paper cut. Like get a bunch of you don't even need to get like the paper itself doesn't have to be the exact color that you want it to be. You can like paint the paper if you need to. You know, like paint the paper in gouache if you want like it to be a certain color. But using like paper cut has this like really cool like dimensionality to it that I love in like a Valentine's Day card because I feel like Valentine's Day and like Mother's Day are some that like it's really common for people to like make cards. So having that like handcrafted feel in your greeting card is like really cool. So yeah, I would try out watercolor, I would try out gouache, and I would definitely like combine those with paper cut. It's super fun. Like if you have scissors and an X-Acto knife and a glue stick, you're good to go. So it's
I
super
imagine
accessible too.
I imagine colored pencils could be useful for finishing touches in this format, right?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Like working on top with like a colored pencil. Yeah, so I'm just like mapping out how big I want the letters to be. This doesn't have to be, and it probably won't be, like the final lettering, but it's good to have like at least um at least this top line and this base line. And then usually you'd want like uh yeah, like this line in the middle. Oops. To show where like these bits are going to connect. So here, like the R is going to probably come in at this line and the E is going to come in at that line as well. So if let me zoom in more. So like realizing that this is like not hitting that line, I can zoom in on the text and make sure that the R comes in here. And make sure that this, again, this probably won't be like the final text that we go with, but just in terms of like mousing it in, um, like that's where you're gonna want like that Y looks okay. It's kind of on that line. This might, that might come in, but this is for when you are doing your final text. You want the top of your letters to hit this top line. You want the bottom of your letters to hit this bottom line, and the more that it does that, the more it's going to feel consistent across like all of your work. If you want it to be more like handwritten looking, I would still put these in because then you can still get like, if you wanted to do like something more handwritten, like you can still have your letters hit these lines if you're writing like thank you, um and like letters like that. So having this in is really helpful, and then you can always turn it off after, and it just like will keep your letters in line. Like down here where I haven't checked if my letters are hitting those lines as strictly, you can see like the U is too far down, the Y is too far down, the T's are like too far up, and like it's kind of moving a little, like it looks more handwritten. Than up here it looks somewhat like it's got this kind of cute like hand done quality to it. The you know it's closer to being what it needs to be than down here is. So I might just like if I'm looking to make sure that I have enough room for all of the text that I want to have in here. I think having that box that we drew in at the start to make sure that this is like about the space that you're going to take up is helpful. And then later on when we go to put this on an arc, or I can show you just like what it might look like. I don't want this arc. You can see that it's going to take up almost exactly the amount of space that I hoped that it might have, you know? So then if I turn this off, then I know that I've like left myself the correct amount of space. So you'll know in these boxes, and you can like map out in these boxes how big you want everything to be. Since I'm doing it digitally, like it might be easier for if I just want to do like an arc, it might be easier to do them like straight on, so I can use these lines to like help guide me. If I was doing it digitally, I mean, if I was doing it traditionally, I probably would like do it in with the arc already. Like I would block out where the letters are going to go like along this arc already. Because you obviously you wouldn't have a way to like transform it like you would digitally. But I mean it can be done either way. It's not you're not limited. Let's see, where did my text go? There we go. Let's see, let's take a look at our reference. We've got a lot of purples, some pinks, and a little bit of blue. So I think we're gonna steal some blue for this. Oh, I forgot. I didn't put the hat on another layer. I'm gonna draw over. Let's get rid of this actually. Let's put this on its own layer. Yeah, I'm trying to leave. I'm using this brush that has a little bit of like tooth to it, and I'm trying to leave a lot of that texture in. But if you're looking at your piece later on and you are like, how can I inject more texture into this? I will show you that later too, when we get like more of a silhouette in, like what we're hoping to see. Uh, Again, I think with like Valentine's Day cards and um I think some of that like hand created look, I think it really works because Valentine's Day is like definitely one of those holidays where like people make cards for each other. Whereas I think people like buy Christmas cards for each other. Um so yeah, so I think having some of that like look to it that's a bit I keep not making a new layer. Having some of that look to it that's a bit like hand done, I think is totally fine. Like I love how much like tooth you're getting over here. It's cool. I also chose animals for this because I think it's, again, if you're trying to make a card for just one person, like if you know one person in your life that you want to make a Valentine's Day card for, it's easy to just like draw them. But if you're like making a card to like sell cards, or if you're making like Valentine's Day art that you like, intend to be for like lots of people, um, you want it to appeal to lots of people. And so like I want, if I were to just draw a figure, uh, that figure might not look like everybody who I'd like to like look at this card, like everybody in the world might not like have the same skin tone or the same body type, or things like that might make my card like less relatable if it's kind of limited in that way. But if I draw like something like cats, anybody who likes cats can relate to it. Or if it's like I could see myself as one of these cats and not necessarily um like feel limited by like specific skin tones or specific body types or like gender, whatever it is. Like I think you can do a lot with like showing animals um to hit like a market of a lot of people uh that like can all find these cards relatable. Yeah, I like where this is going. It's just things kind of shape up as they go. So yeah, I'm leaving some of the texture in there because it's so I'm using texture in my brush. I'm using texture in like this JPEG in the back here of the paper texture. You might think like it's subtle, like is it doing anything? But it definitely like gives a sort of like noise that um you might not get otherwise if you're just doing like just digital. Like that's where things get like people say that it looks too digital in a lot of ways.
Well, and speaking about commercial illustration, I often hear this idea that working traditionally is more convenient, is faster, but working traditionally is more valued in the industry. Do you find that is correct?
Um, I mean that's why if you enjoy both, I think having like the versatility of uh doing digital art, I feel like it does make you more hireable, because companies can use digital art in a lot of different ways, and it's good to know. Uh, but the company that I work for as well, uh, at Hallmark, they do really value like traditional skills as well. So I would say that if you want like the absolute like best chance, I think familiarizing yourself with both is like never gonna be a bad path, you know? Um, but yeah, so I don't know. I think on the whole, yeah, I would say like digital art is probably like more more hireable, I guess. I think that's what like a lot of industries are looking for right now is like, digital arts. There's a lot of like versatility in that. like deciding what I want the face to be. But if you're a traditional artist, like, and that's you, I think it's just finding where you belong. Like, I think it's like finding a company, and if you want to work for a company, it's like finding a company that values that about you and is looking for like a traditional artists and stuff like that. But I don't think I don't think you should like if traditional art is like what you want to do and it's just like not in the industry, then like there's always like freelance and all that. But if you want to work like for a company, I think it's good to just have digital in your arsenal. Like it's just useful that way.
We have a question from Walter. Do you have any advice for people trying to make the leap of traditional to digital? I find I'm often a little overwhelmed and unsure what kind of brushes or tools I should use for basic mark making.
Yeah, I would start with something simple and something free, like uh Procreate, and then I think Adobe Fresco is free. I'm new to Adobe Fresco. I like just started getting into it. It's pretty good. It's amazing. Like their brush engine is awesome. And I know people have like praised the Procreate brush engine for a really long time, and like it is very good. But like I'm just so like in love with Photoshop that like if there's a way to like interest people in digital art that is like a good gateway into Photoshop. I think Adobe Fresco is like a really good one, and I think Procreate's a really good one too. Um, so I would start there. Like their brushes, there are brushes in Procreate and in Fresco that like feel and look so real. In Fresco as well, there's like a live paint. If you're a watercolorist, there's like a live paint or like an oil painter. There's a live paint feature where like you can like put ink down and then like spread water over it or like wet your like page and then put ink down and like the paint will like the kind of like virtual paint I guess like will move as if it was like ink going through water and like it just like crawls through like it's like ink crawling through paper and it's like it's so cool and it feels so real and like yeah and I want to mess with it more so yeah I think if there's like if you're a watercolorist and you're looking for like how do I like how is there a world for me I think Adobe Fresco is like your world if you're like a watercolorist looking to get into uh digital art. If you're like an oil painter, I think Photoshop's mixer brush is great. And I think Adobe Fresco's mixer brush is just as great. If you're like a gouache person, I think you could do either one, like Fresco, Photoshop, or Procreate. I think they're all great. But yeah, I would start off with something simple so you don't get like too overwhelmed. I think that's what makes Procreate so easy to learn right away is like there's not a whole lot to learn. I totally get how like again, I recommend Photoshop a lot, but then like look at there's already a lot going on and there's all these things on the side and there's all this and it's like it's intimidating. I can like completely understand your hesitation with that. But I think it's the sort of thing of like once you do start using it, it just becomes such an asset in your life that uh it's it's hard to stop like and it's if it's something that you can like leverage your artwork to be more like something that a company will appreciate um if it's something even if you're like a traditional artist like mainly and you want to just kind of enhance your traditional art like I think learning some amount of digital is good for that too because I do a lot of work that's like a crossover between like digital and traditional where something starts digital I mean something starts traditional and then like I take it into it being digital later on. Oh, that's cute. And I think a lot of my work happens that way, where like I'll start by painting something. I'll scan it in or I'll take a picture and then I'll bring it into Photoshop and either like draw on top of it or I'll enhance the colors or sometimes I even just like take parts and pieces of that original painting and I make it into something new. Is this layer being used at all? It's and then it just like I think it opens you up to so many new tools. Like, for example, I have this mask on right here that is allowing me to like put details on top of this cat that I'm working on. It's operating in a way that we call like non-destructible, which means that like I can turn this on, I can turn this off, I can delete it. It's not like interfering with like what's underneath it. So when you're working like traditionally, and like it's cool, it's totally a way to work. But if you're working traditionally, like you only have your one layer, really. I mean, unless you're doing paper cut, but you only have your one layer for the most part. Um, so if you want to change something, you have to like destroy the previous iteration of your work to create like the newest version of your work. If I do this, like I'm not destroying the layer underneath by adding like more on top of it. So I think having some knowledge of digital and having some knowledge of traditional just makes you able to think both ways that like uh you know as a digital artist, you always have the option to just work on one layer. And as like a traditional artist, like you have like texture and like this like, real like paper and ink that like is harder to get in digital. So there's like advantages to disadvantages to both. Um, but I think like knowing both of them is just it's been such an asset to me that I think it's way worth it. Because I can do stuff like that where I can like see, is this giving me enough contrast and like start messing with it in a way that like um you might have to do like color studies to get to if you were doing this traditionally, which is fine. Like color studies are awesome. But um I don't know, I think having like this sort of coexistence of your work, like I plan out like big paintings that I tend to do traditionally, I plan them out digitally because then I can do this. Like I can make mistakes and I can say, "Oh, I don't know if I wanted that color," and like uh I can edit things around and I can move things and I can like work on my composition and everything is like super fixable if I make a mistake. Or if I just want to keep mushing it around. Um, so that's like a way that like your work can interact if you are like a traditional artist and you're like, does digital have anything to offer me? Yeah, I mean, look at how many times I can like change these colors. Like it's so easy. um, and then I can like, have different iterations of it that if you're planning to like undertake like a huge project, uh it's really useful to like have this functionality. Um and then yeah, and then if you're doing something digitally, it can be really useful to have like textures that you've painted traditionally just like on hand. Like I had this paper texture. I did download that from somewhere. But I also have like a bank of just like shapes that I've painted traditionally. Like I have a bunch of like flowers and stars and like lines and bows and things like that. Um that I've painted traditionally that I've scanned in that I can like then insert into my work digitally. So I think there's like a really interesting like coexistence that can absolutely happen um when you're working with both. How do I want these eyes to look?
Well, going back to something you said earlier, is it bad that a piece looks too digital?
I I think I'm getting used to the idea of something being like too digital because I think that like kind of stems from the idea that like digital art isn't like valid, but it like totally is. So I think if something looks too digital, that's not like necessarily a bad thing. I think it's just like a matter of preference. It's just that a lot of people, they ask like, how do I get my work to look less digital? Like, how do I get it to have, more texture and more life to it? And I think those are valid questions too. I think that there's like, so many different styles that we can approach when we're working. And so like I feel like what I understand what people mean when they're like, "Oh, my thing looks too um my thing looks too digital." I understand that. I think they're just talking about like um they want it to have like more warmth to it that a lot of like digital pieces that don't have like a certain level of warmth to it. I think that's what people are like getting at when they mean like, oh, it looks too digital. So I think that's like definitely a valid like complaint to feel. Yeah, I think. Sorry, my eyes are so wonky right now. Um, while I'm figuring them out, but yeah. So I get why people are thinking like, oh, I don't like the way that this looks too digital. But I've learned to kind of embrace like you can see in the reference here like some of this like that's traditional. This is definitely traditional because it's embroidery. But like this one down here, I'll zoom in on it. I don't have the highest res photo of this, but it looks very digital. There's not like a whole lot of texture here. It's a lot of like, hard edges and like hard shapes. But I love it. I think there's so much like fun here. I think these reds are so bright that it'd be hard to replicate that in like paint. Like it'd be hard to get a red that like vibrant that's like vibrating in that way. Um, and like this one down here, again, I apologize, I don't have like the highest resolution. Uh, this has like this cute like risograph effect to it. Um, and not everybody might not have access to a risograph. Uh, so being able to like use like digital tools to like recreate the effect of like a risograph is like a cool benefit that like you can still get certain art styles um with your digital art uh that might be hard to like get to otherwise. And yeah, I think I'm trying to use like unexpected colors. Oh, that's adorable. Um, you see me very often, like if you guys are interested in like Photoshop tips, or if this helps you kind of transition into digital art, I love locking my transparency. So like this little button here, it's called like alpha lock. You might see it written that way too. Locking your transparency is like the greatest gift that digital art has given me. But it allows me to like, so that's what this little lock symbol is that is appearing there. It's letting me lock the transparency or the alpha of the layer. So that I can like draw entirely within the shape. So like I can draw and it's only going to exist like within that layer. And yeah, oh, let's talk about that. So like yeah, if we you can also do like a similar thing with like the masks that are these like little arrows here. But so let's say I've got this cat here that's like, you know, he's very one color right now. And let's say I wanted to add some, what are these? I don't know if that'll work for him. I don't know if he needs lines, but let's see if we can add some texture to him. So this is what I was saying where, yeah, maybe he's got little spots on him or something. He's like a tortoise shell. You're thinking, okay, I have this shape here, what now? Oh, where did this come from? Did I leave the stripes on him? I did, okay. So my transparency is locked, so I can only exist within this shape. If I want to add texture to him, I can like absolutely do that. I sometimes like to, like, unless I know exactly what I'm doing, I sometimes like to have it on another layer anyway and do this, like, do the clipping mask. Because the clipping mask will do the same thing. Oh, it's the same color. I can only draw within this shape. But the layer has, like, the full extent of, like, what I'm drawing. So if I, like, unlayer mask this, you'll see that I'm making a mess. And then if I'm holding Alt and this little symbol comes up that'll let me, like, apply it to him. So you can see that, like, his cheeks that I drew, they're actually kind of cute if they, like, go outside of his face. But before they were, like, they were clipping masked, like, to his face. So let's see, maybe I'll bring it in a little closer. But it's nice to, again, like, work non-destructively, because now if I want to, like, add, like, different layer effects, or, like, change the opacity, like, I'm free to do that. If I'm working with, like, the clipping masks. But for little things, like, if I want all of this texture to stay, like, within a certain area, I don't know if that's the color. I might just go directly on top of this layer and, like, apply texture to it. I have so many brushes. Yeah, that one's like a cool paper texture. Let's see, if we take this and go to our cat, we lock the transparency. Let's give him like a contrasting color. We can like add a little bit of paper texture to him. It's like super subtle, but you can see he's got a bit more grain to him than he did before. Maybe we want some of that in our background. Oh, I don't like that color at all. But that little bit of noise, like, is warmth. Like, it adds this feeling of warmth that you might not get otherwise. Yeah. That's nice. But with digital art, there's a lot of pushing and pulling that you just have access to now. And that works for my brain that is needing a lot of back and forth. Let's see.
Well, do you experiment often with new brushes, or do you feel you've settled to your favorite set of brushes?
I definitely experiment a lot.
You have a lot of brushes.
I have so many brushes that like it would be easy to make like a pack of my favorites, but for some reason like I like hunting through all of my brushes. Like I have somewhat of a sense where things are. Like I know what's in this True Grit. Like I know that's where a lot of my texture brushes are and things like that. But I do spend a lot of time just like experimenting with how much I have and just seeing like, I have this like bristle smudge. Like what is that? What is that gonna do? Oh, that's a smudge tool one. So that's not gonna help me right now. But let's see. Like this one's called Big Bad Wolf. Like that's gorgeous. Like I think you should definitely like make a pack of like your favorites and have them like close to the top. But I definitely do like hunt around a lot for, brushes that I don't think that I've settled in yeah, see this one's great when it's like bigger. Um but I think when it's smaller it's a little like there we go. I just have to push a little harder. Um I think it keeps like the variety in my work. Like it keeps a lot of variety that I enjoy having. I think this needs to be blue instead of purple. It's not gonna work. Let's do it again in blue. Yeah, I definitely do a lot of experimenting. There's also, if you guys are looking to get into digital art, I love using these folders. So I'm about to make one here. So this is now the entire folder for this one cat. And then I will make a folder for this cat. Then now it's really easy to like wiggle these around if I want to like move the entire thing. So that's just helpful. And it's also like so that I can keep track of my layers, because as you can see, I'm like starting to get like a big number of layers, and they're starting to get inconvenient to keep like flipping through all the time. Yeah. I think honestly we could probably crop in some. So like if I grab everything and then I see that I'm not using like the full extent of my space, I can just drag it. I can grab it and I can take it to where it needs to be. So yeah, if I just want to like lock the side of this and give it some dimension without having to totally redraw everything, I think that's really helpful. think the switch brushes again. That's cool.
And do you have any tips on choosing a color palette besides trial and error?
Yeah, I definitely do. We did talk about it a little bit the last time, so let me again reiterate for some new people. Um, but one of the things that I'm looking for in the reference that I'm choosing is I think the best way to like get comfortable with color is to find somebody's like existing artwork that the color is already working. So like this let's see. This one here, I think that color palette is already working. I think, I mean all of these, that color palette is like, this one I'm inspired by these purples and the blues and the way that like those are working together. Yeah, find somebody's color palette that is like already working for you. So, yeah, if we like take this and then what I would do is I would like pull colors out from here. So like let's see, we've got this baby pink, we've got this purple, got this blue, and then for some contrast, we've got like a dark green and like a hot pink and like a little bit of like this green as well. Oh, and then like kind of an accent of like the tiniest bit of like yellow. And like make an illustration with that color palette. Like you already know that these colors are like capable of harmonizing. So you can make something like with that existing color palette just to practice like how colors interact because like if you're struggling with like how to use color, like you're watching me like shift colors around all the time and like even if I look away and look back, I'm like, oh, like this can go up a little, like it can be a lot of trial and error. But when you're learning, like the trial and error is hard. Like it takes a long time. So like what if we're, you know, what if that's your color palette? Like maybe it's just that. Like what can you make with just that? Or here we've got purple, got a lighter purple, got an orange, got a yellow, got a light blue, and we've got a dark blue. And like make an illustration with that as your color palette. And you learning how to like use the color in the right way is like a separate skill than being able to like make a color palette that like works. So if you're trying to learn both at the same time and it's like getting overwhelming, like work with a color palette that you already know that it works. Um, so like these colors, I already know that they work because it looks amazing in this illustration. So if I already know that those colors work, I can like take it over to my illustration and I don't like it takes kind of the guesswork out of like how to build the color palette. And then, once you get better at it, you won't need to like sample someone else's like colors every time. But like learning to get comfortable using color and like learning how to build your own color palette can be overwhelming, like if you're doing all of that all at the same time. So I think like starting here, and you can see I'm kind of close to that already. I'm like going for something a little different, but like if I just E, I think it is. If we just like did a test and I like, let me grab this blue and like right, if I put this here and then if I took this and like, is that working? Oh, it's underneath everything. Okay. Yeah, if I like grab this blue and put that here, just to see what would happen. And then I grab this blue and I can like, maybe put that here. I've got these colors here. I mean, I added a pink into mine, so like this existing, color palette might not be the one for this particular thing. But like that's a color palette that works, Like that's something that works. So I think there's something there when you're just like practicing with color. No, I don't know. Layer this on. That working with a color palette that you're already like confident in can be really helpful uh, before you like get going making your own color palettes. But if you are like excited to make your own color palettes, I think it is still useful to just like get inspiration from like color palettes that you admire that have like the same like mood as the one you're going for. I think all of that can be helpful. Um, but definitely when you're starting out, like there's no stealing a color palette. Like there's uh it's all the work that you make with it anyway.
And Iman, this is part one of this card making project. Next week, we're going to be having a critique session where you will be giving feedback on the submitted pieces. Can you tell us the details of the assignment?
Yeah, I mean, I am super like open-ended, so if you guys like want to show me uh if you're making exactly what I'm making, that's cool. If you are doing your own thing and you just want to show like your own like Valentine's Day card, I'm interested in that too. Uh but I if you want like the specific prompt to get you going, I think showing me a card with like two animals that is kind of showing like that Valentine's Day relationship in a card that you might give to somebody for Valentine's Day. I think that's what I'd like to see. But again, like if you have your own idea of like what you want to make for this, and it's like it's not two animals, I'm excited to see the creativity. But I think just at its core, I'd like to see a Valentine's Day card. Because that's the theme. But yeah, I think animals are just helpful because again, like you can show a relationship without necessarily showing two people. Um and it can be relatable. Like two people can look at like an animal and think that they, you could look at this and like know if your personality is more like this one or more like that one. Um Without necessarily having to show like every single person uh who like is going to look at this card um I think animals are an easy way to like show a relationship without having to be too specific. For the lettering, I'm like, uh, again, I'm not gonna be too strict on this, because I think there is something charming about the kind of hand done look to this, but I am gonna shape it up some. Um, oh yeah, I would love to see some lettering approaches in the group critique. That would be nice. But that might be like bonus points for the lettering. If you guys aren't at lettering comfortability yet, I'm okay with that. But bonus points for lettering. Um yeah, what was I saying? I was talking about for this, yeah, I'm shaping this up some. I'm like making sure everything's on its baseline. Um I'm crisping up my edges like a tiny bit because I do want it to look clean, but uh not exactly like a font. And I'm kind of putting a little bit more weight on like the front end of the letter. Just because that's the style that I'm going for today. Um, oh, you know what? Yeah, I just realized I have two different E's. So I think, yeah, I think I mentioned earlier, but like the more you do lettering, the more there's like little things about your lettering that, are going to be unique to you. And one of the things that I think is unique to me is that like I like doing my E's like this, even though I don't like write that way when I'm like writing uh my normal handwriting, but there's little things about lettering that like give me joy to do, and like having an E that looks like that is one of them. So I'm deciding, I just realized that I did like two different E's here, and I kind of want them to match. So let's see if this is cute or confusing. I think it is kind of looking like a 3, so I think we're going to go back to this E. And then this one up here. Oops. I want them to be consistent. Yeah, so we'll get to that one in a second. So
Yeah, I
maybe
should clarify.
yeah, what's
Excuse
up?
me. No, I was going to say that in the chat right now and in this description, if you're watching this video later, you will find a link to a form to send in your work. And submissions will close on Tuesday, 12 at 5 a.m. Pacific time. That is 24 hours before the next session. I also wanted to say that the bird team made me laugh. I think that
Yay!
is super cute and like a little bit silly, which I am all in for.
Yeah, that's the vibe I go for. I like I guess I didn't mention that, but I love a pun like in a holiday card or like a Valentine's Day card or anything like, especially Valentine's Day. I feel like my favorite thing to do is like send my friends like really corny like Valentine's Day puns. So this is where like I was talking about like there's always a piece of you that you could bring to the artwork, and like yeah, I like puns, so I think that's coming with me in the artwork. But yeah, I think you're pretty. It's making me giggle.
Okay, correction. The submissions will be closed on Monday. That is Monday 12th. It is still 24 hours before the next session, which is on Tuesday the 13th.
You can also, there's like no rule against it. You can also like if you really like one of these R's down here, you can like duplicate it up here. Um so that they're like very consistent. Um but just to show you guys, I'm going through and making sure everything is like just about in line. But I'm not gonna like overcorrect this one because again, I like that like kind of messiness about it. It also kind of looks like the cats wrote it, you know, which like is also kind of silly. So I think having something that's like too polished in this particular case, like it wouldn't fit the theme of like what I'm working on. Um, but I think later on as we keep doing these card demos, maybe we can do one that's like all text focused, and then we can see like I can show you guys more on like how to uh how to make something that's like very clean and like very, you know, consistent and all that. But for now, we'll stick with one that's a bit simpler so you can focus more on like the illustration part of it. Yeah, this like N that's written this way, that's like just kind of one loop, is another thing that like I like doing. And I just feel like it gives it like an innocence about it, um, that I think fits with like this particular like cat drawing. But when you guys do lettering and like the more you do lettering, I think the more you'll find that there's things that you like to change your letters to as well. Like there might be a certain way you like to do the K or a certain way that you like to do the Y. Like the Y can also be written uh you know, like this. You know, from this side. Um and that's, you know, that's cute. I actually like that better. I think that's cute. You know, like you can experiment with like how you like approaching it. Like do you like it with one stroke like down the middle? Do you like this one that's like um kind of looks like a lowercase y? I think that's fun. But then now I have to change this y down here. Um yeah, I don't know. There's going to be different things like you don't have to always stick to it. Like I think it's all case by case. Like again, I think that this y in this style has like a little bit of an innocence to it that I think is cute for this card because it's like it's two little cats and they're just, you know, they're just really cute. So I think it's working for them. Whereas like in another case if you're doing a card that's more serious, like if you're doing like a wedding card or something, uh you might style the Y differently. You might either do it straight up and down or you might add like a big old flourish to it, you know. Um But for now, since like we're doing something simple, I think that's nice. You can also think about the way that like your lettering like ends. Like I'm leaving it a little blobby, but also like a little square. Um, but you know, having like rounded ends is gonna have like a different effect than something that has like square ends or like pointed ends. And like by ends I mean like the end of these letters here. Um, like if I completely square those off, they might get a lot more serious than I'm trying to get. Uh, whereas like if I have them rounded, maybe they'll be even like too childish. So like I'm trying to like find a style that looks about right for like the tone that I'm you know working on. So that might be something to think about too when you're doing lettering. Is like if it's not looking serious enough, maybe you do like a more square uh mark at the end. If you want it to be less serious, maybe it gets rounder, or maybe some of your shapes get rounder. But I think there we go. That's looking a little more official. Um, yeah.
Okay, we have around 5 minutes left, and I don't want to go without saying that we have a very exciting announcement to make. We want to share a very special Valentine's Day offer with everyone. So you can click on the link you'll see in the chat now or in the description below if you're watching later to receive 40% off a full year of our library annual plan and New Masters Academy. You will also receive a free month of expert coaching with coaches such as Iman. And to say that once again, the promo is 40% off a full year of library plan and a free month of coaching.
That's really exciting. I'm also open for new like individual students if anyone is looking for a coach that they'd like to meet with. I'm here. Let's talk about art. Let's make this smaller. And also, remember to save as often as possible. Some other cat toys around. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this to this stream. I love doing these and I can't wait to see what you guys are making.
Excuse me, man. Excuse me, man.
Yeah, what's up?
I think that actually we still have half an hour to go.
Oh, that's amazing. Okay, cool. I will keep drawing then. Hmm. Am I trying to find the right size of half dome? Yeah, if you're looking for brushes to get started, I do really like the ones by True Grit Texture Supply. They're very good. I definitely recommend a lot of their brushes. They have a lot of great textures as well. Um, I think working with good brushes is something that makes it easier to transition from uh digital to traditional. I mean, traditional to digital. Uh, because it just feels more familiar. Hitting the eyes exactly right is always such a challenge. But it's like the most important thing, so you really have to get them right.
And what do you think about having a style? Is there something that people can do to develop a style, or does that just come naturally?
Um, yeah, I think again, just like looking at a lot of reference and making sure that like you can look at your reference and like study the techniques of like what other people are doing, and if there's like a certain style that speaks to you, that inspires you, I think learning like the aspects of that already exist in the world, and then like expanding on that in your own way, is a way to kind of develop a style. But I don't think that there's like one style that's like innate to every artist. Like I think you can make anything, and like if there's a certain style that you wish that you could do, I think you totally can. um I think it's like interesting to have like a style that's like you're kind of known for, but at the same time, like I'd hate to see people limited by that. Like I'd hate for people to feel that they could only do one style and that was like all they were capable of. Uh because I think there's plenty of things like out there in the world that like you might be capable of that you just haven't tried yet. So I don't think that it's like something that's entirely, it just comes naturally. I think that like you can absolutely um work towards certain styles if that's something that you're interested in. Like if you're uh trying to be like a comic book artist or something, then I think looking at other comic book artists and like learning their techniques and then being able to expand on it in your own way is like, super valuable information to know. Um, I don't think it's like, oh, I wasn't born with a comic book style, so I can never do comic books. Like, I think it's definitely something that like you learn as you go, you know? And like, I think it's something that like you learn with intention. Um, I think you kind of set your mind towards learning a certain style and then you do that. Whether it's like you know it or not, I think that's like what's happening is that you're picking a style based on like the media that you consume or like the people that you study from or like the teacher that is teaching you. um and I think there's like a lot to learn from people that like have different styles than like is your comfort zone. So I think it's like it's important to kind of branch out in like what you think is possible for you. um I think style is something that you have to be intentional about. I don't think it's something that like I think, I mean, as you get better, like again, like it happens whether or not you're like ready for it, But at the same time, like I think I have like a ton of different styles. Like this like flatter style is like a style I work in because like it works well for like print. If you have like limited colors and things like that. Um, but I also do like paintings and like charcoal drawings and stuff that like bring out like a different style in me. Like I wouldn't oil paint like this, but I do oil paint. Um, so I think that having like a style that you're known for is cool, but like I'm most impressed with like people who have like a range of styles that they're comfortable with. And like for me personally, that's like the type of artist that like I want to be is like somebody who's capable of like lots of different styles and like lots of different um just like ways of mediums or like ways of like telling a story or like however whatever type of art that you make, like being able to do it in lots of different ways is like always what impresses me the most. uh but that's my personal opinion. I know there's like plenty of really amazing artists that are known for their one style, and like that's honestly super viable, especially if like you're going into freelance. I think there's a lot of like um I think there's a lot of like advantages when you're a freelance artist to having like a style that you're known for, that companies can like reliably expect that if they hire you, they're going to get that style. So I think there's definitely something there to like having a style that you're known for, but I think there's like an equally valid strategy of like not wanting to be known by just one thing and like um wanting to branch out and just not be like put in one box, but like be somebody who can like do anything. I think that's been kind of my strategy so far, is like I just can't be tied down to like a single style or like a single medium. I like I was saying, I do sculpting and I do illustration, and like every time like a sculpt comes across my desk, like I'm working for like a different licensor. Like I might be working for Marvel, or I might be working for Star Wars, or I might be working for Disney, and like all of those are going to require like a different style out of me. So that like flexibility to me is like important to do what I do. Um so I think it depends on like what your goals are. I mean, if you're there's tons of fine artists though too that like there's tons that work in one style, and then there's tons that like, you know, they might be known for one style, but they actually do like a ton of like work that you wouldn't expect in like in other mediums. I think that's like always been really fascinating to me, as like somebody who has lots of different styles. So if there's like art that you look at that you're inspired by, I think you're definitely capable of making art that looks exactly like that, you know? I think a lighter background is nice. This is not what I want to erase. There we go. My computer's giving me an error. 1 second. Okay, let's see. I think we can get rid of some layers we don't need anymore. Leave that one. I don't need this one. But I think we're getting there. Yeah, do we have any more any questions before we're kind of wrapping up?
Well, we still have like 10 minutes left. So if you have any questions for Iman, please feel free to leave it in the chat. Okay, I want to remind everyone again that you can submit your own Valentine's card for critique in the next session on Tuesday. And our group coaching program also includes different projects from amazing coaches like Iman. And if you would like to learn more about this, please check out coaching.nma.art. All right, we are near the end here, man.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much for coming along with me. I can't wait to see what you guys made in the next session, in the critique session. Um yeah, I think this is adorable. So thanks so much
Yeah, me
for
too.
joining me.
Yeah, beautiful artwork, Iman.
Thank you. Yeah. I hope it was fun. I can't wait to see what everybody made.
All right. Thank you, man. Thank you, everybody, and see you next week.